You ever notice something? The moment you step into your calling, the moment you decide you're not going to live an average life anymore, something shifts. People start pulling away. Friends vanish. The circle that once felt crowded suddenly gets smaller, sometimes so small it feels like you're walking alone. And here's the truth: the chosen one is never surrounded by a crowd, because destiny does not call you into comfort, it calls you into greatness. See, most people want friends to clap for them, to make them feel safe, to agree with their excuses. But if you're chosen, you weren't put here to play small. You were designed to break limits, to stand out, to carry a vision so big that it intimidates the ordinary. And when your energy rises, when your hunger intensifies, when you refuse to settle, don't be surprised if people fall away. They're not leaving you. They're leaving the level they're not willing to grow to. Being chosen means you walk a road others can't understand. It means late nights when no one checks on you. It means sacrifices no one applauds. It means making moves that get criticized until they succeed, and then suddenly everyone claims they always believed in you. The chosen man has no friends, not because he's unworthy of love, but because he's unshakable in his purpose. And purpose is lonely at the top of the mountain because not everyone is willing to climb with you. But here's what most don't realize: isolation is not punishment. It's preparation. Those empty rooms you sit in, those silent battles you fight, that solitude you feel, that's where resilience is born. That's where vision gets sharpened. That's where you build the kind of strength that doesn't need applause, doesn't need approval, and doesn't need company. The chosen one learns to be his own fuel, his own fire, his own friend. So when you feel that loneliness, don't see it as a curse. See it as the price of becoming untouchable. Because the man who can stand alone, who can fight without cheerleaders, who can believe without validation, that man is unstoppable. And that is why the chosen man has no friends. You step into your destiny and everything around you changes. People look at you differently. They question your choices. They whisper behind your back. And you start to realize something you didn't expect. Being chosen doesn't come with celebration. It comes with separation. You thought people would rally behind you, that your so-called friends would cheer louder, but instead you see them distance themselves. Why? Because your light exposes their shadows. Your growth reminds them of the comfort zone they refuse to leave. Understand this: when you carry a vision, when you've been set apart for something extraordinary, you disrupt the ordinary. And people who are married to average cannot tolerate someone who is committed to greatness. The chosen man has no friends because friends, at least the ones who stay average, can't understand the fire burning inside him. They can't comprehend why he wakes up earlier, why he studies harder, why he sacrifices pleasures they live for. To them, it looks insane. To him, it's destiny. Every man who was ever chosen in history walked alone. Think about it: the prophets, the leaders, the revolutionaries, the inventors. They weren't surrounded by comfort. They were surrounded by critics. They were abandoned, misunderstood, doubted. Why? Because the crowd doesn't see what the chosen man sees. He sees tomorrow while they're stuck in today. He sees possibilities while they're imprisoned by limitations. He sees mountains moving while they can't even climb the hill in front of them. You've got to get this: loneliness is the training ground of the chosen. It is not rejection, it's redirection. It is not abandonment, it's alignment. If you want to carry weight that others can't handle, you can't expect them to walk with you. You don't train champions in comfort. You forge them in the fire of isolation. That's why the chosen man has no friends, because destiny doesn't allow dead weight to survive the journey. And here's where it gets tough. You're going to look around sometimes and say, why me? Why do I have to lose them? Why do I have to do this alone? But hear me, it's not punishment, it's privilege. You've been called higher. You've been separated for a mission bigger than parties, bigger than fake friendships, bigger than shallow validation. Chosen men walk alone because their calling demands focus, and focus cannot survive distraction. Friends want your time. Destiny wants your soul. Friends want you available. Destiny demands you unavailable. Friends want you predictable. Destiny demands you unpredictable. You see the difference? If you try to please both, you lose both. You either rise with your calling or you sink trying to hold on to people who were never meant to go where you're going. The man who is chosen will outgrow his circle. And the painful truth is, your circle will rarely celebrate your growth. They'll feel threatened by it. Because every step you take toward greatness is a reminder of the steps they never took. Every risk you embrace is a mirror of the fear they still bow to. Every victory you achieve screams at their excuses. So what do? They pull away. They label you arrogant. They call you obsessed. They say you've changed. And they're right. You have changed, because chosen men don't stay the same. They evolve. They rise. They expand. And you know what? That loneliness, that sense of having no one to lean on, it forces you to lean on yourself, to build inner strength, to create unshakable confidence. Because when you have no friends, you stop begging for validation. You stop living for applause. You stop performing for approval. Instead, you learn to validate yourself, to clap for yourself, to believe in yourself when no one else does. That is the muscle destiny builds in the chosen, the power to stand without support, the power to keep walking even when every voice tells you to stop. Think about the eagle. The eagle flies higher than any other bird, but the higher it goes, the lonelier the sky becomes. Pigeons flock together, chickens scratch in the dirt, but the eagle, soaring above storms, piercing through clouds, it flies alone. Not because it's unworthy of companionship, because nothing else can survive at its altitude. That's the chosen man. He has no friends at his level, not because he doesn't want them, but because very few are willing to climb that high. So if you're feeling that sting of solitude, if you're carrying that weight of being misunderstood, don't think you're broken. Don't think you're cursed. Recognize it as confirmation. The chosen man has no friends because he's not called to fit in, he's called to stand out. And standing out requires separation. Separation from mediocrity, separation from excuses, separation from comfort, separation from everything that dilutes your greatness. And let me tell you this, when you walk that path, you'll have days where it feels unbearable, days where you wish someone would just understand, days where the silence is so loud it echoes in your chest. But that silence is sacred. That's where your voice gets stronger. That's where your vision becomes sharper. That's where your faith turns unshakable. Friends give comfort, but solitude gives clarity, and clarity is the weapon of the chosen. You see, the chosen man doesn't just live life, he creates it. He doesn't just exist, he transforms. He doesn't just dream, he executes. That's why friends can't keep up. They're too busy wishing, too busy talking, too busy waiting for permission. The chosen doesn't wait, he moves, he builds, he sacrifices. And because of that, he has no friends, not in the sense of constant companions, but in the sense of equals who understand the cost of his journey. And yet here's the paradox, you're never truly alone because destiny itself walks with you. Every step you take, every tear you shed, every sacrifice you make, it's accounted for. And when the time is right, the right people will find you. Not friends who drain you, but allies who match you. Not leeches who take, but warriors who fight beside you. The chosen man may walk alone, but he never walks abandoned. Now, imagine this as you're climbing a mountain. At the bottom, there's a crowd. They're laughing, drinking, celebrating. That's where the friends are. But as you climb, the crowd gets smaller. The air gets thinner. The terrain gets rougher. And soon it's just you bleeding, sweating, gasping, alone. That's the chosen man. And if you can survive that climb, if you can keep going when no one is watching, if you can embrace the silence, the summit becomes yours. And when you plant your flag at the top, suddenly everyone sees what you saw all along. But by then, you don't need their approval anymore because the journey itself has transformed you. The chosen man has no friends because he has no time for small talk, no space for gossip, no energy for meaningless distraction. He's consumed by vision, driven by mission, fueled by passion. His loyalty isn't to people's opinions, it's to purpose. And purpose doesn't ask permission to offend. Purpose doesn't apologize for being relentless. Purpose doesn't wait for consensus. Purpose demands everything, and most people can't handle the level of intensity. But let me challenge you with this. Are you willing to be that man? Are you willing to walk alone? Are you willing to let go of the need to be liked, to be included, to be understood? Because if you're not, you'll always trade your greatness for company. You'll always settle for the crowd at the bottom of the mountain. You'll always wonder what could have been if you had the courage to climb. The chosen man has no friends because his vision is his companion. His discipline is his partner. His resilience is his ally. And when the world finally sees the results, when the impact is undeniable, when the legacy is unshakable, that's when everyone suddenly wants to be his friend. But by then, he knows the truth, real power was never in the crowd, it was always in the climb. The chosen man wakes up with a weight in his chest. Not the weight of despair, but the weight of responsibility. The weight of knowing he was not born to drift, not born to blend in, not born to simply consume and die. He was born to create, to shift, to move mountains. And when you carry that weight, you walk differently. You talk differently, you think differently. And because of that, you no longer fit where you once did. The same jokes don't land. The same conversations don't spark you. The same activities don't feed you. It's not that you've become cold, it's that your soul is starving for more. And most friends, they can't feed that hunger. So the chosen man starts pulling back. He stops picking up the phone. He declines the invitations. He creates distance. And at first, he feels guilty. He wonders if he's betraying people. But then it hits him, he's not betraying them, he's betraying himself if he stays. Because staying in circles that no longer challenge you is self-sabotage. Staying in conversations that revolve around nothing is mental poverty. Staying in environments where growth is mocked as spiritual suicide. The chosen man doesn't hate his friends, he simply can't remain in cages once he's tasted freedom. Here's the reality, greatness is lonely because few people are willing to pay the price. Everyone wants success, but few want sacrifice. Everyone wants recognition, but few want rejection. Everyone wants the glory, but few want the grind. And when you actually commit to paying that price, you will stand out, you will intimidate, you will repel. And the result, you will walk alone. Think of a blacksmith. The chosen man is like iron in the fire. The hammer strikes. The heat intensifies, sparks fly. It looks violent. It looks painful. But that's how strength is forged. That's how shape is formed. And when the iron comes out, it is unbreakable. The chosen man has no friends in that fire because no one else wants to endure it. They're watching from the sidelines while he's being molded into something indestructible. And let's get brutally honest, people don't always want the chosen man to succeed. Deep down, your success highlights their stagnation. Your discipline highlights their excuses. Your courage highlights their fear. So what do? They distance themselves, or worse, they try to pull you back down. They'll laugh at your goals, mock your vision, tell you you're unrealistic. But you need to understand, this isn't about you. This is about their inability to believe in themselves. The chosen man becomes a mirror they can't handle looking into. That's why the chosen one has no friends, because his very existence is disruptive. He is proof that mediocrity is a choice, and people hate being reminded of that. They'd rather convince themselves that greatness is impossible than accept that they're simply unwilling to rise. And so they'd rather you shrink than face their own reflection. But listen, loneliness is not weakness. It is refinement. The chosen man learns in isolation what no crowd can teach him. In the silence, he hears his own voice. In the solitude, he hears his purpose. When no one else believes, he learns to believe anyway. When no one else invests, he learns to build anyway. When no one else cares, he learns to care anyway. That's the power of being set apart. You are being conditioned to be unstoppable. The chosen man has no friends because his life is a mission, not a social gathering. He doesn't wake up to be like, he wakes up to make impact. He doesn't show up to fit in. He shows up to change the game. And the truth is, most friends want you the way you were, not the way you're becoming. They want the version of you that made them comfortable, not the version of you that challenges them to rise. And if you're chosen, you must accept this truth. To step into destiny, you must outgrow your history. And outgrowing your history means outgrowing some people. Not because you're better than them, but because you're different now. And different always feels like betrayal to those who refuse to evolve. Picture this, a rocket ship preparing for liftoff. The boosters fall away after the launch. Not because they were bad, not because they weren't useful, but because they were only meant to carry you to a certain height. Once you break through the atmosphere, they can't go with you. That's friendships in the life of the chosen. Some people are boosters, temporary, seasonal, necessary for a stage, but not for the whole journey. The chosen man has no friends because destiny keeps requiring him to release what can't survive at higher levels. And let's talk about energy. The chosen man has a fire that doesn't burn out. He has ideas, visions, goals that keep him awake at night. He can't sit still. He can't settle. He can't numb himself with the distractions everyone else seems content with. That level of energy scares people. They'll say you're too much, too intense, too serious, too obsessed. But you're not too much. You're just too alive for people who are half dead inside. That's why the chosen has no friends, because his fire exposes their ashes. Now, what does that do to a man? It forces him to grow stronger than he ever thought possible. Because when you don't have a crowd cheering for you, you learn to cheer for yourself. When you don't have friends reminding you of your worth, you learn to create unshakable self-worth. When you don't have constant company, you learn to master solitude. And once you master solitude, you become untouchable. Because no one can manipulate a man who is not afraid of being alone. The chosen man has no friends because he refuses to dilute his vision to be accepted. He refuses to slow his pace just to keep others comfortable. He refuses to sacrifice destiny for the illusion of companionship. And here's the secret. When you stop chasing friends, you start attracting allies. Allies are rare. They're not there to gossip. They're not there to waste time. They're not there to keep you average. They're there to build, to sharpen, to challenge, to grow with you. The chosen man may have no friends, but when he finally finds allies, those allies are worth more than 1,000 shallow friendships. But until then, he must walk the path alone, alone in his discipline, alone in his vision, alone in his hunger. And it is in that aloneness that he becomes unstoppable, because when you've conquered loneliness, there's nothing left to fear. The chosen man knows what it feels like to walk into a room and feel like he doesn't belong anymore. Not because he's inadequate, but because he's grown beyond the level of conversations happening there. He sits among people who are laughing about things that don't matter, gossiping about people who don't matter, wasting energy on distractions that don't matter, and he feels restless. His spirit starts screaming, "You don't belong here anymore." That is the tension of being chosen. You no longer find joy in what others celebrate. The bar has shifted for you. The appetite has changed, and with that shift comes separation. There's a kind of loneliness that hits the chosen man at midnight when the world is quiet. He stares at the ceiling and thinks about everything he's building, everything he's sacrificing, everything he's carrying. And he realizes no one really understands it. No one sees the weight. No one feels the pressure. He could explain it, but words fall short. That's why the chosen man has no friends, because his battles are invisible to those who haven't been called to fight them. And if you're chosen, you know this feeling. You know what it's like to look around and see no one clapping when you win small victories. You know what it's like to make sacrifices no one applauds. You know what it's like to lose sleep, lose comfort, lose company, all because something inside you refuses to settle. That's the price of being chosen. The chosen man often gets mislabeled. They'll call him antisocial. They'll call him selfish. They'll call him prideful. But none of those labels are true. He's not antisocial. He's focused. He's not selfish. He's invested in his purpose. He's not prideful. He simply refuses to bow to mediocrity. But people who don't understand purpose always misinterpret focus. And so they distance themselves. And once again, the chosen man finds himself walking alone. But let's not pretend it's easy. There's pain in it. There's grief in it. Losing friends isn't just about letting go of names in your phone. It's about letting go of pieces of your old self. The version of you that fit in. The version of you that laughed without thinking. The version of you that wasn't carrying this weight. That death of the old self feels heavy. And yet it is necessary, because you cannot step into a new life carrying the corpse of your old one. The chosen man has no friends because he refuses to stay buried. He refuses to die in the cage of familiarity. He refuses to suffocate in shallow air when his lungs were designed for mountain heights. And that refusal makes him different. That refusal makes him unrelatable. That refusal makes him walk alone. When the chosen man walks into his own power, people feel it. His energy shifts. His standards rise. His silence becomes louder than his words. And people sense it. They can't always explain it, but they know something about him has changed. Some are inspired by it. Others are intimidated by it. And intimidation makes them withdraw. That's another reason the chosen man has no friends. His very growth creates distance. Think of a marathon runner. At the starting line, it's crowded. Everyone is together. Everyone is cheering. But as the miles pass, the crowd thins. People slow down. Some quit. Some settle for jogging. And the further you push, the fewer people are running beside you until eventually it's just you, the chosen runner, alone on the road, pushing against fatigue, against doubt, against pain. That's the path of destiny. Crowded at the start, empty at the finish. And yet, the finish line belongs only to those willing to endure the emptiness. And here's the secret: when you embrace the solitude, when you stop resisting it, when you stop begging people to stay who were never meant to stay, you unlock a new level of freedom. You realize you don't need constant company to validate your journey. You realize you don't need shallow conversations to feel alive. You realize you don't need to be surrounded to be strong. You realize you are enough. And when a man knows he is enough, he becomes unstoppable. The chosen man has no friends because he is addicted to growth. He is obsessed with progress. He cannot sit still while the world stays the same. He looks at every day as a battlefield, every decision as a weapon, every hour as an opportunity. And that mindset, it intimidates people who just want to hang out. They don't understand why you're reading when they're watching TV. They don't understand why you're building when they're partying. They don't understand why you're sacrificing when they're indulging.
Yeah.
They don't understand because they're not chosen. And here's the truth. Friendship at its shallowest level is about similarity. We connect with people because they're like us, same habits, same desires, same mindset. But when you're chosen, you stop being like them. You stop sharing the same limitations. You stop sharing the same fears. You stop sharing the same excuses. And because of that, the connection breaks. They drift. You rise. And suddenly, you have no friends. But let me remind you, this is not a curse. This is a refining fire. Because when you are chosen, you don't just need company. You need alignment. You don't just need friends. You need iron. Iron sharpens iron, and shallow friendships cannot sharpen destiny. The chosen man must walk alone until he finds those rare few who can stand the heat of his vision. Until then, he embraces the loneliness as part of the climb. There's a point every chosen man reaches, a breaking point. When the silence feels too heavy, when the journey feels too long, when the solitude feels unbearable. And it's in that exact moment that strength is born, because when you realize you can't quit, when you realize you've already come too far to go back, when you realize no one is coming to rescue you, you become a new version of yourself, a version that is resilient beyond measure, a version that no betrayal can destroy, a version that no rejection can paralyze. That is the power forged in loneliness. The chosen man has no friends because he is too busy preparing for tomorrow. He doesn't waste today in distractions because tomorrow demands his best. He doesn't waste energy explaining himself to people who refuse to understand. He doesn't waste breath begging for loyalty from people who were never meant to stay. He saves that energy for building, for growing, for climbing, and the result, he rises where others fall. Look at history. Every man who changed the world was isolated. Visionaries like Nikola Tesla, leaders like Nelson Mandela, innovators like Steve Jobs, prophets, poets, creators. Loneliness was their classroom, and what they learned in that classroom became their legacy. That's the chosen man's story. His loneliness is not wasted. It's invested. Every hour alone is a seed planted, a root growing deeper, a foundation being laid. And when the fruit finally appears, the same people who doubted him will want to taste it. But they'll never understand the years of solitude it took to grow. And there's another layer to this: trust. The chosen man has no friends because he learns quickly that not everyone who smiles is loyal. Not everyone who claps is genuine. Not everyone who walks with you wants to see you win. Some people want access to your fire without carrying their own. Some people want your light without honoring your darkness. Some people want the benefits of your rise without paying the price of your climb. And so the chosen man learns to protect his circle, to guard his space, to value quality over quantity. Because here's the raw truth: the higher you climb, the more dangerous fake friends become. They don't just waste time, they sabotage destinies. They don't just distract you, they derail you. That's why chosen men are selective. That's why chosen men seem distant. That's why chosen men have no friends, because they've learned the hard way that not everyone deserves access to their energy. And what happens when you embrace this fully? You step into a new kind of power. You stop chasing people. You stop explaining yourself. You stop shrinking to fit. You stop apologizing for your fire. And you rise, alone if necessary. Because you know destiny doesn't require company. It requires commitment. The chosen man has no friends because he is becoming the friend he needs. He is becoming his own motivator, his own believer, his own protector. And when you become that, you are no longer desperate for shallow connections. You are whole, you are focused, you are free. So when you find yourself standing alone, don't mistake that loneliness for weakness. It is proof that you've been set apart, proof that your life carries a weight others cannot carry, proof that you are walking a path most will never dare to take. The chosen man has no friends because his destiny is bigger than friendship. It is about impact, legacy, transformation. And if you can endure the silence, if you can embrace the climb, if you can walk alone with unshakable faith, then one day the world will see what you already knew in your heart you were never meant to fit in. You were meant to stand out.